kick off with a short summary of what we see happening in the future. Then I will give the word to Ellie about the trends in online brand protection, followed by Severine from G-Star. And after that we have a short break. And then I would like to look together at the future. So we will split up in 3 groups and brainstorm about potential future trends based on methodology which is also used by Shell, Unilever and Apple called scenario planning, but more about that later on. I already introduced myself briefly, General Manager E-Commerce Foundation. I can only do one thing, e-commerce. I've been e-commerce manager at Bijenkorf, at TUI Travel. I work for both the European E-Commerce Association as well as the Dutch E-Commerce Association, responsible for research. And 4 years ago I became the General Manager of the E-Commerce Foundation. And our mission is to, quite ambitious, to foster global digital trade. And the idea behind it is that the more we trade, the more we talk to each other, and hopefully the foundation in a very, very small way contributes to that goal. We do 4 things. We started off with making reports on how to sell online successfully in Germany, China, Brazil, etc. We now publish about 20 reports annually, about 50 countries and how you can do online business there. And they're downloaded about 50,000 times a year because they're free, and which for the Dutch people in the audience is always very important. The second thing we have is a knowledge portal called ecommercewiki.org. And the third thing is actually and the fourth thing is actually what I call the carrot and the whip. The carrot is safe.com. There are many trust seals in the world, but about 30% of all the e-commerce transactions are now across the border. And there's no global trust seal. That's the reason why we launched a global trust seal in cooperation with local e-commerce associations. So our trust seal is now active in South Africa, Brazil, Croatia, Indonesia, and more countries are adopting our trust seal, so that reliable web shops who are willing to apply the code of conduct we defined together with 20 countries can show our safe.shop logo on their website to increase sales, because it increases consumer trust. And finally, Scam-Advisor. We acquired Scam-Advisor a year ago from Mark Roberts, who's still working for us. Mark bought a golf set 7 years ago from China, and surprise, surprise, it proved to be fake. And nothing is more dangerous than an angry developer, because he started developing an algorithm to identify fake and scammy websites. So we can see with Scam-Advisor, okay, it claims to be a Dutch website, but it's hosted in Romania, which might still be okay. But if it's also selling consumer electronics, it becomes a little bit suspicious. If they're then also hiding their contact details, have terrible reviews, are based on a server where we know there are a lot of other scammy websites, then the trust score of that website drops and drops. And that's actually our ambition with Scam-Advisor, is to make it into the global blacklist for all unreliable scammy websites, selling fakes, phishing, credit cards, etc. And for that we will also work together with brand protection agencies like React. So this is an example. React provides us with a URL, and we then inform the consumers who are going to Scam-Advisor.com, hey, this might not be a good idea to buy from that. We never publish a list of where can you buy fake Chanel products. That's not what we do. Consumers really have to search for it, but then we can warn them. And the nice thing is that now our database is also going to be used by Pinterest. We just finished the technical testing, and they're going to, every time somebody publishes a URL on their website, they're going to check our database. Is this something we actually want to promote? So that's enough about the commercial, about the future of shopping, what's happening in the industry. And I think tech is one of the driving forces. That's also what we will use during our brainstorm. How is that influencing brand protection? I never understood this quote until a few years ago. I thought Amazon was a retailer, but they are really a tech company, and tech is becoming so important because it's developing so fast, and it's allowing things now which weren't possible 1, 2, 3, 4 years ago. And I really like the full body scan. It was unaffordable in the year 2000, and I don't think it will take long until we can buy it at the local Albert Heijn for €5.99. So technology is really driving a lot of changes at the moment, much more than we realize. And I think the ladies amongst us should recognize this movie, but I don't think it will take long until Netflix starts selling. I wouldn't be surprised that in maybe 5, 7 years, Netflix is the biggest online retailer because they have our eyeballs, so why not sell the things we like there? Also a big impact you see a lot of talking about virtual reality, augmented reality. We're often copying old concepts. There are a lot of experiments now with glasses where you walk through a shop. And I think that's typical what's not going to work, because we're copying the existing world to the digital world, and that's not improving a customer experience. What I think is an improvement is what you now see in a lot of shops in New York is the virtual mirror or the magic mirror, where you really can put on things without and see how in the mirror it would look without putting it on. Big question, of course, is what's the added value of a physical store when we start to have these kinds of mirrors also at our home. Warby Parker is also experimenting a lot with technology, and what I see there is you have the iPhone who can scan your face, and then if they scan your face, they recognize the structure of your face, and based on that they can come up with recommendations. This is, by the way, not my brother. I get a lot of questions about that. But if he removes his glasses, the app can scan the face and then come up with product recommendations. That's also something I see now. Facebook is really investing heavily into virtual reality. Just a brief example there.
Hey Jack, are you all excited for our trip?
Yeah, and look what I found.
This is so cool. Is this the same spot we're going to?
I hope so. And look, I think that's where we're taking the boat tour.
Oh, I love it. Look, I'm gonna go chat with Melissa, but you're setting up the party room, right?
Yeah, I got it.
Great. See you later, Jack.
All right, see you later.
Bye. Hey girl, guess what?
What?
I got the apartment.
Wow, nice. Look at your balcony.
I know, it's amazing. No roommates.
Typical American, of course, but a good example of what that future world might look like. We all talk about artificial intelligence, and on the one hand side, I think it's a hype, because it will take a very long while until we have the things you see in the movie, completely understanding everything. No, you cannot see the difference with a human again. But smart algorithms who are self-learning are really starting to add value. And I like this example where IBM has developed for NoFace a much more natural way of looking for products. So instead of asking, okay, do you want a coat suitable for how many feathers or how warm it should be, they ask you, okay, where are you going and when? Because based on that, they know the average temperature there, if it's humid, yes or no, and they can come up with much better recommendations. We all know about social media, and I think what we don't realize is how fast commerce is at the moment growing on social media, and Eddie will tell a lot more about that. But we see that the buy button is being integrated in Pinterest, in Google, in Facebook, and Facebook even has the ambition to become one of the biggest retailers by saying to you, don't try to get Facebook visitors to your website, just give us your product data and we will sell the right product at the right moment to the right consumer for you, but on their platform. Voice is also going to change commerce. I mean, personally, I could not imagine we would buy so much via such a small screen. It's now, in the Netherlands, already more than 50 to 60% of all the traffic on the websites, but it's also moving to 50% of sales. And the interesting thing with voice is that it changes our relationship. I mean, with a laptop, we would go to Google, you get 10 search results and you can choose. With mobile, you go to Google and you get free search results. With voice, you talk to Google or to Amazon Alexa, and you no longer get a choice. You start to trust that voice that it or he or she will buy the right product for you. As a short example.
Hello, Barbie. Turn off my alarm.
Say hello to the Hello Barbie hologram, our first voice-activated digital assistant.
Hello, Barbie. What's the weather?
It's 55 degrees. A jacket would be perfect for today.
Hello, Barbie. What time is it?
It's exactly 7:30 on the dot.
Thanks.
Wait. So can you imagine that our kids will be talking to a Barbie, and of course the next step is, what would you like to wear? And hey, we have some recommendations for you. Adidas is also, there was Adidas in the room. Yep. What I understood is Adidas is investing heavily in 3D printing. Where is that going? I mean, will we move to a world where a consumer is able to print products? And of course, what will that do for brand protection in the future? Enough about technology, how about the consumer? Most of you will recognize this as the Maslow pyramid of self-development. And I explained this to my 10-year-old son. And of course, he drew Wi-Fi below it because it's more important than anything. And then he looked at the picture again and he said, no, it's not right. And I thought, oh, thank God, he starts to understand it, but he drew this below it. And I went with my children this summer on safari, and for them, the fact that in Tanzania there are places where you do not have Wi-Fi was an eye-opener. It was worth it only to do that. But Generation I, as we call it, the internet generation, they're no longer used to the fact that sometimes you do not have internet. They're completely merged with it. And what's also different with Generation I, it's much more, it's not selfish, but it's much more focused on me, myself. And Google also reports that. They get much more searches where, okay, nearby me, for me, should I, etc. So a very changing consumer. And of course, as consumers, if we as brands want loyalty, I often tell people that, yeah, if you want loyalty, buy a dog, because the consumer is no longer going to give it to you. I mean, the fact that people are just loyal to a brand because it's easy, it's also very easy to just click away to the next supplier or somebody who just gives you a little bit more experience. And that's, I think, where also the challenges lie for brands is in time. Consumers are willing to spend 60 to 80% more if a brand helps them to save time, make it easier. And that's where a lot of brands are now investing in. Also, if you look at the market size, these are the Dutch figures, but in 2018, about 25% of everything we bought online, goods and services. And we also asked, or actually the Dutch E-Commerce Association asked, okay, what's the expectation for 2023? And it still grows quite significantly. And I think I should not ask, but who bought something recently in China as a consumer? May I ask what you bought?
A dress.
A dress?
Yeah.
Okay. And was it a brand dress or?
No.
No? Okay. I always ask this question, and it usually starts with I bought a cable for my mobile, but then it goes to a mobile itself. And the most recent example I gave this presentation last week in Finland for the fashion industry is a lady stood up and she said, I bought my wedding dress there. Fully customized, custom made, and it fitted perfectly, and it saved me about €2,500. So the consumer in the Netherlands, we now order more from China than from Germany or the UK, and it is going up very, very quickly. And what I also see, I've visited China several times, is we should no longer underestimate their brand power. Chinese people are really starting to understand how to build brands. I would expect also more and more real brands coming to the European market very soon. To wrap things up, we also see, of course, changes in business models. We all know about Facebook, Netflix, etc. The marketplaces. Recently, I visited a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, and they said they're only going to invest in number one in a specific niche. Why? Because number one owns 85% of the market. Maybe number two owns 15% of that market, and there's no number three. It's the winner takes all. And we see that with marketplaces like Amazon, Alibaba. They own now together about 50% of the market. Amazon owns more than 50% of the American market now. Alibaba 85% of the Chinese market. Yesterday it was published that Amazon also owns 49% of the German market. So it really goes very quickly. And what we also see is that Amazon is starting to develop its own brands. It's food, it's milk, it's diapers, but it's more and more also fashion. And they own now about 20% of the fashion market in the US online. And it's not only, as I said, Amazon, we saw it also with Facebook. Facebook showed this slide on the recent National Federation of Retail conference in New York. And they're actually saying, retailers, stop trying to get traffic from Facebook to your website. Let us sell it for you on Facebook. And with Facebook marketplaces, they're also really bashing eBay at the moment in the US. It's a very good alternative to eBay. Skipping a few slides, but we also know about Google that they know everything about us. I mean, it's not only the website, but the fact that nearly every website has Google Analytics implemented gives them a tremendous amount of data, even if you're not on an Android phone and not using the Chrome browser, they still can follow you and see what you're doing and what you're reading. And they are really investing heavily into Google Shopping, copying actually the Pinterest model. Why? Because they lost a lot of product-related searches to Amazon, and they're trying to get it back. Google sees Amazon as its biggest competitor at the moment. And finally, Alibaba. Alibaba can no longer grow in China, so they're really doing their best to expand. Funnily enough, they're really trying to get a lot bigger stake of the physical retail in China, which is still 82% of the Chinese market. But they're also expanding abroad. And AliExpress is moving via Russia to Europe. AliExpress now owns about 30% of the Russian market, and they just made a major investment in Zalando. And on the other hand, they're also going towards India, where they're meeting Amazon and Alibaba are currently really fighting it out for the Indian market. And Ali's ambition is very simple. They want to become the 5th economy in the world, having more than 1 million employees, serving more than 2 billion customers. So to wrap things up from my part, what we see is that technology is really having a major impact on how we as consumers shop. As we are changing our way of shopping, new market models are introduced. We're buying from China, we're buying on marketplaces. And that's a big challenge for brands and also for brand protection. And I hope we can have a discussion about that today. That's it from my side.
Thank you. First of all, Yuri. It was very interesting, for me at least, to hear all these new developments that we are not always fully aware of. And I am very happy with the cooperation that we have established over the last year. With ScanAdvisor, we are working and coordinating the information that we have collected with regards to the standalone websites. So that's a very nice connection that we have established here. But today I am standing here in front of you to discuss what is happening with social media and what is the importance of it. Most of you I know, it's very nice to be in such a small room and I hope that we will be able to get a very productive discussion out of this and good points to be able to set this as a strategy for your brands and also what we can do as React with our team and with our social media enforcement team. So, again, what I am going to discuss and focus on during my presentation today is really social media. What is the trend and what is the position of it online at this moment? So we will give a general overview, and then we will have a look where should we focus, how should we focus, and why should we focus on social media. In the end, I will, of course, provide you with some recommendations, and I will demonstrate on how we do it. I will only give a small part of the demonstration, because then PJ will go into full details of how we deal with the cases from an online to offline perspective. And in the end of the day, that's what it's about. Social media monitoring is giving us the leads to go from online to offline. And getting offline, once we get offline, we actually get the results that we want, because then we are tackling on the ground the sources of these infringers. In order to provide you with an overview of where social media is at, let us have a look at the general pictures of figures of React. These are figures of last year, 2018, because well, we still have a couple of months to go for the end of 2019. We can see that we are operative in over 95 countries on a global level. That gives us a unique position. That we have a network that we can approach, again, on a global level. Internet is a global thing, so we really need this network. We see here that we have over 295 member companies. That's not correct, because yesterday I learned that we have 299. We're almost reaching the 300 number. And the good thing about that for us is that we are so diverse. We are not focused just on retail. We have in all type of industries, we have members. That also really opens up our focus. It gives us insight in all different segments of all these industries. We are conducting a lot of trainings and seminars, mostly for custom authorities, market inspections, police, on a global level. And then we have around 50,000 cases, had 50,000 cases on a worldwide level on a yearly basis. And this number, it's only related to custom cases and market seizures. But then if we are looking at the product seized, there are over 35 million products seized. In this, we do not see the reflection of the internet cases, but in the product seized, we do. So there we have the connection to the online. Because a lot of these products that are seized are actually coming from an online order. It's a border custom seizure that has to be made to stop it. So when we look at how many listings we have closed, it's over 2 million last year, around 43,000 websites, standalone websites, and over 40,000 social media and 11,000 applications. The number of the listings that we are closing on an annual basis since 2018, we see a decrease in that. This does not mean that we are less active. On the contrary, it gets more difficult to find listings on marketplaces, so it's more time consuming. And we see a shift going to social media. But let us go to the next slide, because now we're getting where we have to go to. with the social media, and that's the why. So why should we monitor, and why are we emphasizing so much now social media compared to the obvious marketplaces, the Amazons and the eBay and Alibaba, the standalone websites that we also, of course, have to tackle. Why should we put this special focus on social media? Well, marketplaces are becoming more compliant. We see that with Amazon, where in the past we had huge removal numbers. They have this policy that they know their customers. Most of the big marketplaces have that. They know who is selling on their platform. They will not allow a repeated offender to come back, or they will have some restrictions on him. So he cannot continue to do the business. And the platforms become cleaner. The sellers, these infringers, they do not think, okay, I've stopped here, so I will stop my business. No, they will go and find another way to sell their products. And social media is so much easier for them to register on. And that's what they do. Besides, it's happening behind closed doors. A lot of this sales is not public. We see that. Well, I will get to the where, but so they are hiding, and we have to find them, and that's why we have to pay attention to this. It's happening in closed groups. There are hidden links. Celine will tell us more about that. I will also, but professional networks are being used, like LinkedIn, for example. We will have an example on that. And networks that are happening on a local level. That's something that we typically will not see if you're doing business in the Netherlands. You will not see what is happening in even in Germany or in another country, because you will have to monitor there. So how do we do it? How do we enforce, how should you enforce on social media, and how should you use that information that you get out of it? Because there's often very valid and important information that we can find from it to continue with this lead, not to just take it offline. Well, first of all, we have to find it and detect it. So that's the first step. Then, once we have it, well, we have to also apply and use our local network. We can report and remove it, so then it's offline, and that's the easiest way. That's a very low-cost way. Just you find it. These platforms are usually social media platforms are cooperative in that sense. You can report it quickly. However, somebody should assess before taking it down, is this actually, should we take it down? Of course, most of it should be taken down as quick as possible, because that is the most efficient method to limit the sales and to stop the sales. However, I say there are targets that we should not just take down, but investigate. And those are the targets that our people at React, and we do that as well. We then detect that, analyze that, and then you should take that certain targets offline with investigation, and then take it offline. And the last question, then where should we focus? That's also a question, because social media, yeah, it's out there. It's a social media network. It's usually used to just be social, but nowadays it's not just for socializing anymore. So first, know your brand, and with that, I mean, let's think actively and creatively. Where could it be offered? Is it something that is will be offered on the Facebook marketplaces, or will it be offered in closed groups? Often we see, by the way, that it's not being offered in the marketplaces. Counterfeit products are usually not being offered on Facebook Marketplace. They are offered in closed groups. Some brands are typically to be offered in professional networkings, especially when we see medicine, for example. They will tend to use different methods of using social media to offer their products. So that's what I mean with know your product. And there are some products that will be typically infringed on applications. Not all, but there are some, and that's something that we should be aware of. And this is like an ID scan that you will have to perform to see, okay, what is best and where is my product to be found most. And sometimes it can be a surprise because you will not expect your product to be found somewhere, but well, the infringers, as we know, all can surprise you well. And what are the challenges that we're having doing all this? First of all, hidden links. And that's a very it has become a popular way. It is used on social media. It is used on platforms like Taobao or Alibaba, where a seller will use a code. They can say you can order 1, 2, 3, or you can just say what you want, a completely different product. And then there, if you go through another link, you can see what that numbering or actually means, that it's a certain size or a certain color, but it will not appear on the ad as such. The closed groups are, of course, a big challenge for us. Not only for when I say us, I mean for all of us. A big challenge are the mobile applications. That's what we see especially in China with the WeChat, because you cannot screen on a computer screen. You need to have the mobile application. So you have to go through the phone and reporting as well. So that's a big challenge. We have a lot of numbers in China in our office, and that's how you have to. We also have to be creative in finding ways in again detecting and reporting these listings. The cooperation with the social media platforms is challenging as well. Not in the sense that they are generally not cooperating when we are sending notice and takedowns, because they will cooperate once we send it, but it is a challenge when you have to and ask them for more permissions on how to screen on their tool. There is this, Facebook has a commerce as IP tool application. That, for example, can be applied for, and then once you apply for it, you can screen through Facebook, through the marketplaces and look for logos and trademarks. We have tried to submit on behalf of some of our members, and then we were told, no, you cannot. You cannot apply for this service or for this tool because you are not the council, and the brand has to do it by themselves. So they are very. We will be challenging this, of course. We will not leave it like that, but it demonstrates that these social media platforms are very selective, and they pick and choose who they will give a certain service to. They will prefer to, well, they will say, okay, I like you, or probably will not go like that, but they will say, okay, you will get it, but you will not. And they are just selective in providing certain services to certain members, which we believe is not fair. So these are challenges, and these are serious challenges. It's just not it's not easy to go on social media, and when I'm saying social, all these social media platforms, you cannot just type in the words or search for an image because you will not get it. You really have to dive in deeper. we can consider it as a part of the dark net, what we are, this phenomenon that's happening, because you cannot, it's all behind closed curtains. So, how does React deal with it? I think that's how we get. Now we're getting there because we are not leaving it like that. Usually, when a member wants us to monitor on social media, we suggest that we first run an online survey to see and to detect as much as we can from the beginning. So what's up there on the top of the mountain, to see what is there on the side. It's better that we can go deeper, but first to make a landscape of what is happening there. Once you do that, you can also see, should we focus on a certain country? We also have these discussions with members using us, and we say, do you have a certain problem, or do you want us to pay specific attention? Maybe a certain country is of specific interest for the company. And then we can ask for that, and then we can really, with our intelligence unit, go into that certain country. As I also said, most of the links that we find, we would recommend swiftly and efficient takedown. So it's offline and it can at least not damage on short term anymore. The ones that we consider to be very important for long term are typically the targets that we will pull out, analyze, do a quick analysis, share it with our intelligence unit and ask, is this a valid target for further investigation? With the affirmative, we share it with our member and we'll ask, are you interested in this? Should we go further? Conduct a test spy, that's often the first and most logical step to obtain more evidence. And based on that information, we can also give recommendations on what the most logical steps would be to take further offline action, depending on the country, of course. And then again, we have the benefit of having all the global local networks. And the last point is a very important one, I believe, and a unique one for React. Because we can combine the information of custom seizures with social media and, well, not only social media, but with selling online in general. And that is something that we do. We have done this, we can do this from both ways. That means that if one of our offices is noticing that there is a shipment coming in 1 week there are 50 parcels coming in from one address going to another, well, that's something that the local people should then really question, or even if there are 10, because that does not seem to be then anymore a personal gift or a personal parcel, even if it's only one product. Those are the ones that we will take out. The local unit will take that out. Check it, investigate it, see if we can find also where the source comes from. That is often, of course, then an online source, and share that with you so we can take, again, further action against this person. That will mean, that can mean removal of the online sales, but it can also mean further local investigation and action against that person. If it's a Chinese seller, then, well, unfortunately, usually that means just take him offline, because full investigation might be just too time consuming and too difficult. So then the advice could be just take everything offline of him, so we will not do any more damage, at least for this channel. The way that we are set up, and again, I think that this is unique what we have, and I believe that React is so strong in social media because of this network that we are having. We have our general online enforcement teams that are based in Macedonia, China, India, Vietnam, and Brazil and Russia. We have people that are working only on online enforcement there, entire teams. But in addition to that, we have the regional online specialists, so and we have local support wherever we need that. The regional online specialists, well, we are here, there are India, Vietnam, and Korea, and Latin America, but that's not all. We have, since, the last year, we have appointed one local intelligence officer. I have to think of it, LOE, right? Did you? LOE, yeah. Well, we use this abbreviation. We have Skype meetings, every video calls once a month, to combine, to get all these local officers together in one meeting, that's being led by PJ and Yasmin, to give them instructions on how to search on social media, how to create a profile, how do you create a profile on a professional network, how do you do that on these other social media networks, how should you analyze, how to create a report, etc. And we have really seen the fruits coming out of this project over especially the last couple of months, where in particular some offices are very fanatic in finding good targets in social media and getting cases out of that. And that's what we want. We want to get the cases out of that, not just see the figures and not only see the removals that are being done, because that's only one part of social media monitoring. Social media monitoring is this, the removals, plus the offline cases. That's the combination. And then we have really the full analyst and specialized analytics that are being handled by PJ and his team, led by PJ in Ireland, in China, and in Brazil. So that's what we also have again in Russia. This is also done by Konstantin Domen. And then the local people are not only doing the investigations, but they can also support us with conducting the test flights, because often you have to do that on a local level to make sense, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense. If you find something, especially on social media in a certain country, and it's a closed national group, you cannot order that from HQ, from Amsterdam. You have to order that in Italy, for example, because if not, it will be weird. So why would you order that there? So we have to use that and make use of that local network. We are communicating with ISPs and are setting up the cooperation with certain ISPs on a local level, and that all just turns out to work so much better than if you do it from a centralized point. And following up of the cases, that it goes without saying that you have to do that in the country where you find the target. And that's what we can do with our local network. So, to translate this into some real actions, I will just give a couple of examples, and PJ will go much further. And I just thought it's good to demonstrate what it actually then means effectively. It's interesting to see that this was a target that we found on LinkedIn by creating a professional network or professional profile, and then we started communicating with this profile and with the seller, and asked him if we could order something, and it turned out to be indeed he had a stock of infringing well, watches. We have to remember here. It's and the interesting part is that when we started with this case, and we first thought no, or we discussed this. Yeah, can I say that, Dennis? We discussed it and we thought, well, LinkedIn probably is not of interest. That was, and then we asked. Then we asked PJ to check if it's really not of interest, and then we found this. And that's why I say we often do not see it. We don't realize it. It's not that you don't see it; you don't realize it. So this is this case was found because of investigations that really checked if it's really that's clean and if really nothing is happening, which turned out not to be the case. This is another example where we have collected custom data. This was based on custom seizures and resulted to a rate. And the customs data led to an online retailer. So here customs seized, and then we get from customs to online and seizure. So we have the triangle again, and I think we cannot avoid that. Not in these days anymore. Well, we saw in Yuri's presentation as well how much things have gone online. So if with all these things going online, we have to keep the triangle in mind continuously. It has to be a connection from online, offline, and action investigations. That's the way, that's the circle that we have to make. And it can go this way or that way, but they have to all be connected. And last but not least, this was done by with the assistance of Google Maps. And that's where it was in Ireland. An address could not be found, and that's how we used Google Maps then. I think that this was as well led by PJ's team. And because of this, we were able to conduct a raid. Again, we have the circle where we have to use all points. My presentation is, my part is coming to an end. This is, but I will leave PJ to explain some further details of really how we are operating. And I will be very happy to further discuss, especially because we are such a nice cozy group. It seems like gezellig. Yeah, to discuss on and to hear as well from you what is your experience and how can we advise and best assist you. Okay, thank you.
I'll go specifically into hidden links, as Ellie mentioned, but I'll first give you a quick presentation of G-Star, because I wasn't sure of the audience and whether anyone knew about G-Star. I know I didn't. So we're a Dutch fashion company, HQ in Amsterdam, lovely building. And we basically got our fame in the 90s, so we're doing a lot of jeans, and that's where we really got famous, and that's where the counterfeit issues started. So this is Pierre Morrissey. He started our famous jeans, the Elwood, and that's what created the brand really. Less known facts about G-Star. We are really, really into the sustainability efforts, so that's just me trying to brag about my brand, but yeah, we're doing a lot of efforts, technology to make sure the cotton is organic, of course, but is also the technology on how the garments are made. The coloring, the indigo dye is sustainable, and everything is responsibly sourced. So yeah, we're working a lot on this point, and another interesting thing about G-Star is that we have a huge archive in our HQ. It's basically a room filled with 18,000 pieces of workwear and vintage clothing. So that means pieces from the 40s, from the 50s, the 70s, from markets, from everywhere, genuine pieces that have been bought and collected there. And I thought it was pretty cool. So, and that is where we stand for. So, yeah, G-Star is very proud of its brand and is really building up on that. Fortunately, so did Counterfeits. So that's where we created a team that was originally 4 people in Hungary tackling counterfeits. This was reduced to just me. So I had to think about how to strategize this. So how to identify the issues and how to best tackle all the problems we were facing. Yeah, what did I have? We have issues that are pretty much the same across all the industry, although we are in fashion. I think it'll go back to what React does for us. So raw websites, those scans and things like that, we have a lot of customers complaining about those websites. Looking like G-Star, people are ordering, not receiving anything, or if they do, it's a rock. A lot of scanning happening that damages our brands. Mostly phishing though, not many counterfeits there. Marketplaces, that's where we see a lot of trade in counterfeits, but also grey imports, genuine overproduction. You've got the trade of everything, and that's where it's difficult to identify what to do and how to tackle it. Because you see a product advertised, but then you have to identify what it is. And then social media. With messaging apps, because I see them as almost one now. The messaging apps are becoming social media and vice versa. And I see them more as advertising platforms. You mentioned they might integrate the buy buttons. It's not there yet completely, so people still buy on marketplaces, I think, and that's where they just advertise the products. So I'll go into the hidden links. What are hidden sales? I've separated by 2 items. So I'll go into hidden sales and weekend stores in particular. So as Ellie mentioned, these are advertisements on trading platforms such as AliExpress of a completely regular product, completely unrelated. This is, what is it, a cable? Yes, not really of interest. What it is, however, if you buy the product, you will receive a counterfeit good. So in order for the consumers to know what they're actually buying, they'll have to advertise it on another website. So through social media, that's where, or through messaging apps, that's where they'll post a picture of the product. That's where they tell you the price, what color you can buy it, what size, etc. So the advertising is made on social media and messaging apps, and then the sale is actually happening here. The weekend stores, it's the same principle, except they're kind of a little bit more obvious. So sometimes they even put the brands on AliExpress. They don't really care. So they put up the store and the links on the Friday. Because Alibaba headquarters is quiet during the weekend. They do that on the Friday and then take it down on the Sunday. So yeah, these stores do not rely on the regular reputation of marketplaces. So the star ratings and things like that are very confusing. So usually they actually ask not to leave any feedback, not to comment on anything, and especially not to communicate to the seller. If you're actually ordering something, the seller will request you not to communicate through the platform, because AliExpress will see all the communication. So it's a very, you have a certain number of steps to go through in order to understand how this works.
I'd like to give PJ the opportunity to also present his cases, and then we continue with the discussion, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you
So,
very
thank you
much.
very much.
For these slides, relatively quickly, but we look, this is like the world in 2019 in terms of how many people exist, how many people use the internet, how many people use social media, and how many people use mobile. So if you broadly see, if I go to the next slide, people are always telling me like how can the internet keep growing, can online sales keep growing, can social media keep growing. Year on year there's increases. For 2019 compared to 2018, there's been an increase close to 10%. In terms of, like if I go to the next slide, just in terms of what we're seeing, mobile growth is really driving online shopping, it's driving social media. Literally everyone, the world is just a fingerprint away at this stage. And in terms of your brands and shopping, it also means things you search for will appear in your social media feeds, they'll appear in your ads, and it's just one click of a button and all of a sudden you're buying from some company you may or may not know from. In terms of what we're seeing specific to social media, so my previous employment before I came here was Facebook, and I was guilty of thinking as well that people my age aren't using Facebook anymore, it's all people much older. But the stats show it's not. Facebook are growing year on year. They have, go to the next slide actually to break down specific to, say, all of your brands and where retail is going. So this is just, I won't even try to pronounce some of the numbers because I'm not sure, but in terms of, I would say, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and must be LinkedIn the last one, yeah, it's a different logo, but that's just some of the traffic that's coming through it. So if you think in terms of your brand and where it's being advertised online for social media, there are some of the key numbers you would see. And then the final slide, if you just think also about where your brand, where your products are sold, where they're bought globally, and this is just a broad overview of the different regions around the world where people have internet access and people use their internet regularly. So then, background on the team I manage. So we called it our investigational footprint. So we've divided it into 4 areas really. So offline and online. I think we've already spoken today about the importance of both to each other. Next is the intelligence gathering and reporting. So that's the bread and butter for my team. That's where we do our desktop investigations and try to present as clearly as possible to all of you and as much detail as possible on any target of interest. Social media, so that's the big thing we see occurring on our investigations. It's some of the feedback we'll get from our members, what's happening to the social media side of things. And then lastly is enforcement, which is something that I'm quite passionate about myself. I do think that there should be consequences to pay. So in terms of our pillars, if we look at offline and online first. So basically I've got it displayed that wherever your product is sold online, we've got a way of touching it. So we've got, let's say, different React units across the globe. We also utilize partners across the globe. And if there is an area somewhere where you find a product sold that we don't have a partner, we'll try our best to get one for you, and you can have physical confirmation of the item. As soon as we have it, we can decide whether local enforcement is needed, and then from an online investigation, if there is a need for, let's say, local investigation, we can utilize one of our partners to go do a site visit, see exactly what's for sale, get an idea of the scale, and then determine with the member, is it worthy of further investigation? Specifically, is the cost justified in pursuing the target offline? In terms of intelligence gathering and reporting, so that's what we do. So we call it the 4 W's: who, where, when, and why. So this is where we get as much background information as possible on targets for you. We try to find out exactly what they sell, where they sell it, who's behind it, what other companies the targets are involved in. Are any of the other targets also selling in the same industry? And then in terms of websites, what other websites are linked, what domains are linked, and even recently we had some success with subdomains being linked, which wouldn't always be the strongest link, but through communication with email, we were able to correspond that different websites were all selling the same product, and we could link one website to 4 others, which was quite a large electronics company we worked for. So basically our main goal for an investigation is we do all the heavy lifting so you don't have to, and then we provide you with answers in a quick, concise and accurate format and work with you then afterwards to get the best solution for your brand. In terms of social media, as Ailey mentioned earlier, it's a lot more than likes and retweets now. And then if you can go into the open marketplaces, it's a lot more than just what visibly you can see through open source. A lot of what's interesting in social media is what goes on behind closed doors. So we've got closed groups and secret groups. And by gaining access to them, you can see what people would say counterfeiters and infringers really don't want the normal eye to see. So that's where we come in, and we can gain access to these groups, provide intelligence to you on what goes behind these closed doors, and see what's relevant to your brand going forward. And then ultimately the aim would be for offline investigations to occur if there is enough evidence, and would say we have enough evidence to show that the number of items being traded would be of interest to your brand. And finally, enforcement. So if a target is guilty of infringing a product, there should be some reaction. That can take form. It could be a C&D letter, it could be a simple removal. If we want to involve local investigation, it could be a market raid, a survey, and then there's other legal options you can pursue. This is something that we'll always go through. And then in terms of any reports you receive from the intelligence unit, I read all the reports before they're, I reread all the reports before they're sent out. And any report you receive from us will always have recommendations as to what the next best step is for you. You'll never get a report from us that won't provide you with, we'll say, answer with solutions for the next best step forward. So our aim isn't just to show the evidence, we want to help you the next step to make your brand stronger online, and for any infringers who do offend, that we can look to take the strongest action together against them. In terms of how we approach cases, so we're always asking questions, and we like to try to think, we're thinking differently, we're trying to think ahead, we're trying to provide you as our members with the best possible solutions. And as we saw with hidden links earlier, infringers are always getting more intelligent, so it's up to us to rival them, beat them, and try to understand what they're doing next. So some case studies then, just to give an idea of what we've done on social media. So one of the questions we're commonly getting asked from brands is, how exactly do we know what happens when we can't see what's happening? Very fair question, and I'll try to give an answer with an example of a case we've done. So the steps we would take in this situation would be, if it's happening in closed groups, we'll try open the doors, we'll look behind the curtain for you, we'll gather the evidence, we'll provide you with an intelligence report on exactly what we've seen and what we think that future enforcement could be, and then we'll assist you in exploring the options. And then the idea behind this for you is what's invisible suddenly becomes visible, and you have an idea of what goes on in closed marketplaces, in closed groups, in secret groups, pertinent to your brand. So one known brand we've worked on specifically in this in the last 12 months, they came to us and they were quite worried about reports they had about their brand being distributed in secret groups across 4 countries. So the countries were Germany, Lithuania, Norway and Denmark. So in advance we agreed these were the 4 areas we were going to search for on behalf of the member. We agreed on a reporting frequency, so once a month we would provide them with a full market survey of these 4 regions in terms of closed group access. The member provided us with specific details relating to the product they were interested in. So they told us exactly, let's say, what packaging it came in, what the outside packaging should look for, or should look like, and how we could detect any specific infringing items related to this brand. So at this stage we knew the geographies we had to investigate, we knew what brand we had to investigate, so then our job is to gain access to these areas and try to determine what we can figure out. So terms of our initial measurables then, so we had 4 countries we had to analyse. In terms of social media, we accessed 81 groups in total. So just to break down then, 53 of the 81 were closed groups. So these were groups where we had to perform some steps to gain access. So it could be in verification, like answering some questions, or others would have been just somehow to verify that the accounts we had, these were alias accounts, were genuine, and we were there because we knew something about what we were going to purchase. So that takes a little bit of time, it's not instant. If it was instant, everyone could do it. So maybe over the course of 3-4 weeks and a little longer it took us to access these groups. And then via the closed group access, we managed to gain access to 5 secret groups. So the secret groups were, say closed groups where we definitely could see some of the infringing items being sold. Once we got to the secret groups, people were becoming much braver, and it was possible to see, I'll call it in the next slide, the attribution. So from the secret groups, we could see the attribution account, and attribution just means this is the genuine account of the person who is selling the item. It's not one of their alias accounts. So then ultimately this investigation, so we initially started with 4 countries. 3 of the 4 countries were worthy of future investigation. These were countries where we saw the items being sold. So we pursued 3 of the countries. 14 of the closed groups contained infringing items. So say if we had access 81 and we got 14, maybe it might seem relatively, yep.
May I ask you?
Yeah, of course.
And what you found, is that then more wholesale, the supply chain, or are they more consumers?
These were wholesale.
Wholesale.
But I'd say wholesale in terms of they had quantities of over 1,000. So it was relatively large scale. So in terms of, let's say 14 of the 81, you might think, so that's 67 groups that didn't. But in order to provide a full market survey, we needed access to as many closed groups as possible. And this allowed us then, so the more groups we access, it's more admin for us, but that's what we do. So the more closed groups we access, they increase their likelihood of getting access to the secret groups. And some of the secret groups involve, let's say, having to use Telegram chats, or some actually use WhatsApp groups, but it was mostly Telegram anonymous apps. So we had to go through that channel as well. So as well as social media, it transferred onto some of the chat services, which are increasingly popular. And in terms of this report, it's gone to a bi-monthly format now. And the last 3 formats we have sent have showed no infringing items from the member being sold in the 3 target countries. So over the course of, I think this has been going on for about 9 months. Over the course of 9 months, the member is satisfied that these groups and the person behind it are no longer selling their product on these platforms.
But they're selling other brands, right? So they're switching.
No, so this was specific to the brand. It was someone who gained access to, which was clearly a counterfeit product of the brand holder. But it is possible that they could switch to another brand, and if they do, we're more than happy for that member to come to us and we'll find them again. You have another question, Roy?
Yeah, I was curious also here, how was the transaction in the end done? Was that like Severine presented, they're sending you to AliExpress to pay, or how
it's done via private messaging or via the chat messaging?
But that's not the transaction.
So a transaction in terms of payment?
Money, yes.
Yeah, they want wire transfer.
Sorry?
They wanted wire transfer.
Wire transfer, okay.
And it's actually, so we say if we had attribution accounts, we had principally wanted wire transfer because it's the most anonymous for them, and it also requires some front-end verification from us. But there was some who still like PayPal, which is good for me because I've got some contacts there, and as a company we've got a good relationship with PayPal. And also we have the ability where we can request to PayPal the removal of transaction services for our customers. So in a perfect world, I would like if people use payment processors like PayPal, but infringers don't always want to make things easy. In terms of also the power of social media, so I'm not sure how quick or how well this can be seen by everyone, but this was someone that we were investigating in Brazil. This first image is of a tiger teddy bear taken from the target's Facebook page. Next is the bottom picture is taken from Google Maps of the office of the person we believe was the target, and when you zoom in on the Google Maps image, it leads to this, which leads to this.
That's lucky.
It is. It's also the power of it's very little.
But that's how precise, sorry. That was precise.
So they call this case the Eye of the Tiger, and we eventually managed to get this target. It's so it wasn't based on the teddy bear, but the teddy bear helped us in our study of proving that the actual target we were following on social media was a very strong likelihood of the same person behind the business operations. And the next one is also, this is someone in the Netherlands, so it's telecommunications, and we had surname matched by companies' house searches, and then once again we just wanted to confirm that the target we had found on social media was the target that was behind the business, and Google Maps came to our rescue again, and we could make out that there was some kind of image on the bumper of his car, and then when we zoomed in it gave the surname Singh, and our target was a Singh. So we were highly confident then that we were able to link his Facebook page to him, and via the Facebook page we could also link a family member to a separate company. So I'd say be careful what you tattoo on your car, be careful with your teddy bears, because we're always looking. And I think that's all. Oh yeah, and then just the final thought for today, I just think it is for all your brands, is what happens when you always ask the same questions, you get the same answers. So we always say to our brands, if you come to us and you like our assistance, we challenge you as well to tailor something to us. If you've got a specific requirement, the example I gave where we've done the 4-country analysis, the brand came to us, they told us the items they were interested in, they told us the region. So if your brand has a specific requirement online, ask us by email, we'll do our best to tailor a solution for you. And as we've seen, much of what's out on the internet is there to be seen, and if there's a way of linking something, we'll do our best to find it for you. And anyone wants to contact me, you can just send me an email to my work address, so it's PY, Y is in yellow for white, @react.org. And if there's any questions, I'll ask them now, or if we want to break, I'll leave it up to you.
No, are there questions this time?
I think everybody is afraid to ask.